It's a ghetto.
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
Oh, no!
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning!
Okay.
Tape deck alert. Tape deck alert.
Thank you, as always.
Brilliant!
Yeah, here we are again. I'll tell you, the world will never be the same after today. 5:01, 5 o'clock a.m. in the a.m. on the 12th of January in the calendar year 2022. Some say it might be the year. Very comfortable on this 20-some-year-old chair. Send me a chair. Here's the thing. I got the hoodie on, the Then Watt hoodie. I think you can see enough of it there. And a game over hat and like the full accoutrement. It's cold in here, even though the heat is on and all that jazz. What's the temperature outside? Let's see. Yesterday at this time it was like 10. Today it is, I don't know. It's saying it might be 28. I don't know if that could be possible. Let me just try to pull this up. At least through the weekend, it looks like it's just going to be kind of semi-cold. Well, Friday night's going down to 9. Saturday it'll be 10 again. I find it hard to believe that it's 28. I think it hasn't updated yet because it's cold. You know, like Dean Martin said, baby, it's cold outside. Hey, these hoodies are really nice, by the way. Available, you know, at the website, ROCKFLUX.com, you know. Show you that later. Title of this show is "You Will Own Nothing and Not Care." That's that's on the card, and then it says, "Is the metaverse real? How real? Run how?" You know, what is real, right? Before we get into that, though, let's do let's take a look at the planet.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And here's what's happening in the former United States. As you can see, the patterns haven't changed all that much, with the exception of that there appears to be some kind of downward flow from the Great Plains that's then getting pushed over into the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic area. We'll have to watch that development and see what happens. Otherwise, people in the southeast of the U.S., and for right now, most of the mid-Atlantic is clear, and it looks like that Pacific Northwest circulation is trying to work itself down. But there's still a high pressure, in the south portions of it's hard to describe, in the central southwest, I guess, that's holding that southerly flow down out of the way. So that's it. You could tell where you live by the concentration of lights. And if you are interested in looking at this, you just rewind. And after it's all said and done, when this thing is posted, excuse me, right after the show, it's posted and available for all to see. Anyway, that's that. That's your
The Weather Watch forecast.
By the way, I'm drinking 100% Kona coffee, which according to some is some of the best coffee in the world. One of the top several coffees. Now, I made it fairly strong. I'm drinking it black. And I don't know. It's good. I mean, it's coffee. It's just, I don't know. It's not knocking my socks off necessarily. Let me try that again. slurp it in there like they do at the wine tastings, you know, get that flavor all in your mouth. Don't seem to have any jaundice or anything of that kind. I had a fairly decent night's sleep, a couple of bizarre dreams, but not really too bizarre. And managed to maintain a steady, you know, went for the walk yesterday to the grocery store, as I said, you know, trudged with my hiking boots on. Didn't trip, almost tripped once or twice, but, you know, made it back in one piece. And so I managed to forgot to take my reading glasses, right? These are reading glasses. I use these because I got so much small print in front of me, trying to find these goofy little things here.
The only station that matters.
And so I had to use, but I had my smartphone camera, so I was able to pinch to read the labels because of this. You know, you have to watch when it says whole wheat. You know, you don't want whole wheat, you want whole grain. And I managed to buy some whole grain crackers, really, really thick crackers. I mean, you know, they look like those, like matzos, if you know what those things are. But I mean, you know, thrice as thick, really whole grain. And then I put in an order through Instacart, and I found some Irish butter that's cow, you know, grass-fed, from grass-fed cows. You know, I'm primarily, you know, I'm moving into the idea of, you know, I just don't, you know, the idea into like vegetarian type of thing, not for any kind of ideological reasons. Well, I mean, yeah, actually more ideological than anything else. I mean, just the idea that having known animals, that it's, you know, I just have a problem eating them. But, you know, I'm not a milk drinker, and dairy isn't really good for me right now, what I'm trying to get through this thing. I also bought some milk thistle, right? Took some of that. I took some magnesium glycemate, and I've been taking some Chianca Piedra, which stands for stone breaker. And I'm going to, while I'm talking to you, so if I look a little, you know, Google-eyed, because I'm looking at Google, I'm looking up magnesium glycemate. I hate when I see something like, read this before buying. You know, supplements, benefits, side effects, usage, health line. I'll take you along. Let's look here and see what this guy has to say. So, display capture. I don't know why it does that, like, infinite thing. Importance of magnesium. Researchers found magnesium deficient president, blah, blah, blah. Okay. May help lower blood pressure. I don't have that problem. Reduce stroke. Cardiovascular disease. Type 2 diabetes. Don't have that problem. Improve bone health. Don't have that problem. It also seems to relieve anxiety. Well, that we were talking yesterday about the, you know, the effects of anxiety on us and cortisol. So I guess it helps with that. Promote bone health, manage blood sugar. I mean, that could be good for the gallbladder, technically. Amplify exercise performance, reduce symptoms. Well, I don't know that. It may also help reduce, I don't know, pain, risk of stroke, diabetes, and all-cause mortality. Deficiencies. Geez, my CPU is going off the thing. How to use supplements. I worry about that. Excess. Hypotension. I don't really have that problem. Some keys. I'm not accessing it. Cardiac arrest in severe cases. Okay, great. I took a pill. It's going to give me cardiac arrest. Magnesium is also found in dark leafy greens, Swiss chard, and spinach. nuts. I eat that stuff. That's why I only take like one. I just take one pill like a week. Risks. Buy supplement respected. If you're taking antibiotics or other medicines, not worried about that. It's an important mineral that helps the body function. If you can't get it, I probably don't need to take it, is what it basically is saying there. So once a week, since I'm going through this thing, excuse me, let's get out of this if we can. Nobody's watching anyway. So let's get rid of display capture. This is me, right? This is me.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
And, okay, so this card that I put up, and I kind of messed with it a little bit. It's the Ready Player One image, of like these trailer homes stacked one upon the other. Right. Remember these people in the tiny home culture. It's really just trailer parks, overpriced trailers. Of course, even a trailer park itself today is now overpriced. Everything, inflation's out of control. But I thought I'd use this image because, these shows this year, like I say, I'm not just rambling on and doing, a show for the sake of a show. It's like I'm trying to work through some ideas here, and what's happening, what's really going on, and maybe have these things, certain shows or groups of shows kind of address an issue and really work it out, so we can see it clearly what's really happening. Because 2022 is such a pivotal year in the future of mankind, right? Womankind, if you need to hear that or whatever, who knows, whatever people are into. And I'm saying you will own nothing and not care, as opposed to you will own nothing and be happy. And, so we're combining the metaverse, right? The Ready Player One, which is clear, is the metaverse, defined. And then the World Economic Forum's you will own nothing and be happy. This idea of this totalitarian state that's basically going to, the nanny state or authoritarianism, whatever you want to call it. And we're already in so far beyond the point of no return. And that it's time, and I've talked about this before, and this is so since I talked about it before, I think it's a good point to start with. So a point of departure, so we can get delve deeper into these important issues of the day. Because those ignoring this are literally going to be left behind and just, totally blindsided and befuddled with what's going to happen in the coming months. This year is going to be the year that everything is wrong. Everything changes, and you realize you don't know what you don't know. So, as BP Earth, whatever is, BP says, that guy BP, heads up or something like that. So, but anyway, so think about that, the combination thereof of this idea of the World Economic Forums, you will own nothing and be happy, and the metaverse, you will own nothing and not care, because you will be basically, inside here, right? Looking through those two little things. It's crazy. You know, it's really crazy. See, the thing is, we've gone from the idea of entertainment to, virtual reality, right? And, there's all this talk about augmented reality is, that's not, I don't know if that's really going to happen. So hear me out on this one, right? It's like I was trying to explain with AI. It's like these things like AI, right? And the algorithms that we have, running search and doing all these and many nefarious things right now, particularly as I pointed out a couple shows ago, like with Google search and how the internet is literally broken. And because of the sheer numbers, right? That when you get millions of search results, if not a billion, or if there's 26.1 billion videos on YouTube, that even it's impossible even for the algorithms, to do their job. They only do what they're programmed to do. AI only does what it's programmed to do and what it has access to do. And yes, it can take and formulate from that data, those databases, right? And cull together that information, put it in some sort of form and converse with you in the form, like a chat bot in effect, and eventually, chat to voice and then voice back to chat. And that's kind of how your voice assistant works in a way, but they don't really have the AI GPT-3 in them, okay? That's just the way it is. I know, because I have all of these things. Yesterday or the day before, I showed you my book, Codex, back there, and, that talks about the hard problem of consciousness and my conversations with an AI. And a GPT-3, by the way. So the point is, those of us who understand code, those of us who understand, the roots, right? The server side of all of this, right? Who, like I said the other day, like in the Matrix, what you're looking at is not a visual this isn't really video necessarily in the sense of video. What you're really looking at is code, particularly this screen, because this is going through. Getting noise outside. This is going through an open source program that gives me the ability to bring up title cards and graphics and all that sort of thing. So then this is interfacing with YouTube Studio, which then is being broken down, right? And sent over, the internet, right? Through, in my case, a direct wire to my modem, to the central place. And then there's this giant satellite dish they have, and it's being beamed into the cloud, right? Service provider I use. That's what they have. They have the world's largest satellite dish. Right. And they just changed hands. It's a new company now I never heard of before. Let's see if I still have it here. I don't want to open that up. Anyway, they changed their name. Probably because they're getting a lot of bad, people have been complaining about them. PR 101, change your name, But anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is that, okay, sometimes we think there's going to be a certain technology, and a certain technology is hyped, and there's research and all this, and development into a certain thing, but we tend to, hopscotch, right over it, right? And so it's like, whatever happened to that, right? Or it becomes so short-lived that few people remember it, and some people never had time to even notice it. And I think there's a move now. What it seems to me, the whole concept of the metaverse is that, particularly, spearheaded by Mark Zuckerberg, of course, but everyone else is jumping on like crazy, is virtual reality. Is VR. And the idea of augmented reality is what? Just because you're present with other people present. Well, that's the concept of what of what I'm trying to say here. That's the Ready Player One thing. That's virtual reality. You're putting on, the headset back here that I just brought up. Okay? So it doesn't matter how many players there are in the game. And that's what and this thing has a nice little hand pouch, a little kangaroo pouch in there. These are comfortable shirts. TonyCaravanLive.com, ROCKFLUX.com. Get one. They're not that expensive. They're really good. Soft material, washable, don't shrink. Same with these hats. The hats are have a high crown, but I wash my hats I don't like the high crowned hats. So I washed this hat about 3 times and tried to keep working it down to make it more like a poplin cap. And I'm really happy with it now. It didn't shrink or anything, but it kind of helped that crown, I know, it's just a thing. You might want to experiment with that. If you have a hat, it's like, I call it a boat head, that comes up really high. You can work that out, but you got to wash it. Wash it in hot water and stuff. Anyway, little tips like that. So you will own nothing and not care. And what is reality? What is real? And who's going to run this thing? And people say, oh, Facebook, and they're going to make all this money on it. And then you see these things where Snoop Dogg has bought property in there, and there was rumored, like I say, I don't have verification of this, so when I don't have verification, I tell you that. But somebody bought property next to Snoop Dogg in the metaverse, for $450,000, just so they could be a neighbor of Snoop Dogg in the metaverse, not in the real world. And I noticed that there are a lot more people that are spending time, and they're even already referring to it as the metaverse. And even if they're not wearing the headsets, because there are all these sites and places, this is is reminiscent of the early days of the internet. Is that when you used to talk about being online or doing something, people you knew, family members or other people, they'd be looking at you with this blank stare. And even if they came over your place and you turned on your computer and kind of showed them the thing, they just kind of looked at it with interest, but it's almost like an animal, a dog or a cat, when it sees something that it just can't comprehend, it kind of looks at it and then it just looks away. It's like, this is, my brain can't, comprehend this, or I don't know what the heck this is, so I'm not going to waste time, right? You ever notice that? It's like the cat, it'll get attention on TV or something you're doing for a while, and then it just, looks away and sits down and purrs or something. And that's how people respond to this right now. It seems to be, it's almost the same way. It reminds me of the early days of the internet when you talk about it. Is that people aren't aware of how many people are deeply into this. It's almost like the gaming community in general, because obviously the differences between high-end gaming and virtual reality are, there's so much crossover there. It's pathetic. But all along, as gamers, and then when I say literally the gaming community, people have no idea what goes on there. You know, they think, okay, it's some kind of video game or something. You know, I mean, their response, they have no idea of the intensity of it, the worlds, you know, that people have been living in. And like I've said before, you know, there are people, they have a job, they go to work. And when they come home, it's like, you know, either bring home some kind of food on the way home, throw it on the coffee table or whatever, you know, wherever your control, you know, console, you know, whatever you're using is, you know, and if it's Mountain Dew or some kind of, you know, energy drink or whatever, and then you sit down on that sofa and you've got this, you know, the 80-inch screen, you know, with the surround sound, and that's what you do, and you go to sleep, you go to work, and you repeat, you know, like I say, rinse, you know, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. You know, I have a thing that I used to put up, and let's see if I could find it. What was the daily photo? Okay, that was a Christmas thing. Yeah, that could be replaced. Here, let me find this thing for you. Give me a second. As Hal would say, just a moment. Originally, I was going to put the picture of Hal up as the thing today, but I didn't. Yeah, let me move this. And just for the sake of it, I'll put it in this spot and then get rid of Ready Player One for a second. So it's like wash, rinse, repeat. This was a title card from a show many, many moons ago. But it kind of gets the point across, you know, in a rather Tony Caravan signature way. You know, there's always got to be the beautiful woman, the beautiful woman with the skin, you know. Yeah. Skin hound. That's a word I haven't heard in a while. Just came to mind. So that's the gaming community. You know, and wash, rinse, repeat. And, you know, and it very much is, you know, in some regards, I'm sorry about this chair, this whole thing. To get comfortable when you're a one-man show is crazy. And now I'm leaning over towards that part. But it's more comfortable over here. You know, what am I supposed to do, for crying out loud? But you know, the gaming thing there is that physicalness to it, and like the coders really get into, you know, creating the realism. It's like I showed before, you know, how much detail in that one of the original movie based on a video game, that final whatever it was called. I drew a blank then, I drew a blank now. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm talking about. But how it was the focus, if you really looked at the girl, you know how much focus was put into making her perfect. So anyway, that's that. Wash, rinse, repeat. And don't forget, we're trying to push some of my music. So Virtual Cage is a good tune, but there's many other good tunes. It's just that not the tunes from the 8-track album. Forget that. Okay, that's over. Next holiday season, you can listen to the worst Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa song ever written and sung by that album. Okay? I may give some out for free next year. All right. But what we're focusing on right now are the songs written after that. Okay. So you got to go down the list, whether you're on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, wherever. Go down and see the more recent stuff. That's the good stuff, man. It's the good stuff. It's the really good stuff. Let's get that on the charts. Let's get airplay on that. All right. Let's get airplay on that stuff. Okay. So anyway, dealing with this idea now. So the merging, if we want to merge, this concept of, say, we take the new World Economic Forum, okay? You will own nothing and you will be happy. And then you take my idea here, you will own nothing and not care because you will be in the metaverse. And what they're telling you about the metaverse is this idea that, you're going to people have stores. There's already people doing commerce, and they've been doing commerce in some of the other sites. There's been various ways of doing things, And so, this is nothing new. What I'm saying is, for the general public, for somebody watching this who's not familiar with the gaming community, who's not familiar with virtual reality, who's not familiar with any of this stuff. So I'm not going to waste time on this being a primer and 101 on it. It's like, you got to move with me on this, but I will stop every now and then and be, and explain a few things for, somebody just joining into this, being aware of what's going on. But we're already far deep into the metaverse. The quality per se may not be what you think. All right. Or, what some, up to snuff with certain expectations and standards that people would like. But it's improving day by day. And like anything else, like I said with even the Echo Dots, they could put GPT-3 AI into their voice assistants, all right? But they don't. They're holding back that technology, okay? They're holding back the technology. And so at the same way, the metaverse is holding back technology. Because there is realism, that has been used in Hollywood productions. And, and you could go back, literally decades, all right? And see the detail in which we can create landscapes and humans, all right, to near perfection. And what happened is, over those past 2 decades, it has not only improved, all right, the quality, whereas I could be an avatar right now, okay? Yes. And this entire set behind me, everything here is unreal. And if properly implemented, GPT 3.2, which is, I say we're already probably up to that or further, this conversation wouldn't have to be necessarily be me off camera or something speaking this. This could just be happening. Now, people can't grasp that and comprehend that because the technology has been held back for the past 20 years. And I'm not going to bother. I've done it on other shows where I've shown you, all right, what the technology was in film, CGI 20 years ago. And right now, currently, it is mind-blowing. It's literally mind-blowing. And you've seen those things several years ago where they could take like Obama and have somebody make him, make it look like he's saying something, or they could take anyone, Well, I'm just giving as an example. They've used people like that, prominent figures. And of course, the reason they did that was politically motivated. They were trying to say so that whenever people would, that was pre-election time, whenever someone would accuse a political figure of saying something that's contradictory to their current platform, they would say, "Oh, that's a video fake," or something like that. It's funny how they release stuff like that out at that point. But the point of the matter is that's not the case. Most of these people are, like I always say on this show, and I'm going to say it again, it's all hypocrisy. And it's hypocrisy for profit. All right? So chances are, yeah, if you saw a video of somebody saying something, you know, they said it. Right? That's not the stuff they're messing with. They're wasting their time on. Okay? Now, what they are wasting their time on, or not wasting their time or whatever, is that they're able right now, and I say they, I mean multiple people, you know, not the mysterious they, you know, that people always say. No, I'm talking about people in Silicon Valley, Hollywood, you know, China, Japan, you know, all over the place, you know. Anyone who's working on this kind of, working with this technology, these kinds of people coding this. And, you know, with the quality, you know, the capacity of memory, the speed of chips, it does take 20 years ago in order to produce, you know, a film, a CGI film, and, you know, photorealistic animation. In other words, where it seemed, you know, where the characters took on human qualities and actors could interact with, you know, these so-called avatars or whatever, you know, that took an awful lot of people. And there was a lot of post-production involved in these things that, you know, was mind-blowing. And the number of people it took to perform these tasks was mind-blowing. But today, you know, if I really put my mind to it and had to get up here, I could produce some pretty outrageous stuff. I could probably produce a show and you wouldn't know the difference whether or not it was me or not. Because, like, again, it does take money. You have to be able to, you know, I would have to buy, you know, one time I like kind of figured it out, calculated it. If I wanted to do it with, like, say, Apple computers, like the latest Apple computer with the Apple chip, right? The Mac computer, right? You know, the cheese grater type of thing. You know, it would cost. I'd have to have basically a $20,000 getup, and I might have to have like two of those, right? And you can't see my monitor right now, but it's pretty big. I mean, I could show it to you. And I might as well, because, you know, this is, you know, let's just get into everything here to give you the idea. I'm using a discontinued monitor from Apple. Every time I do this, the photo app, when I put on my iPhone, the photo app comes up because I'm using an older operating system. I haven't bought I don't have a new iPhone, and I don't know if I'm going to get one. And if you can see that, the Apple, it's just starting up. I'm going to use the camera on here to show you the back. Since camera 2 is up there in the corner. That's the one that's facing outside. So let me put my password in there. Take the camera. And yeah, the photo app just came up. So I can't, what it says is you have to unlock your camera in order to use, you know, the photo app, but it won't recognize this because it's an older operating system. It's Apple's way of saying, hey, sucker, you either buy a new computer or not. And I guess what it's showing, well, I guess I do want it to do that. It was showing my like leg or something before. And all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this back. Where's the camera? to the camera. All right. And without the microphone in the way. This is such a pain to do. Here's my coffee cup. By the way, see, here's this thing. See that little light? You probably can't hear me because of it. The little light and that gray thing, that's a thing I bought for $9, and it actually keeps my coffee cup warm. $9. Bought that online. So, that's my getup. And of course, I'm trying to show you the overall, and it wants to do this. Let's do it this way. You see how big the monitor is? You can grasp that. I'm trying to pull back as far as I can. But my primary monitor is pretty darn big. Put a hand in front of it, you see. And then that is a fairly decent sized monitor over there where I've used my sound effects. And you can see I have a keyboard there. And of course I've got a keyboard down here. All right. Okay, we got that nonsense out of it. That was like, you try to do something, and it's a big operation for no reason whatsoever. It should have been simpler than that. But I'd probably need to spend at least $20,000. I could probably do it with a $20,000 souped-up cheese grater computer. And probably a $1,000 to $2,000 monitor, or probably need 2 monitors. So about 25 grand. I could probably, with the current technology, chips, terabytes of storage, solid state storage, all that sort of stuff, some extreme high speed processing and storage power, all right, that we currently have. All right. I'll try to get myself away from this. It's just my chair. And for some reason, when it's over this side, it wants to keep sinking down. Like, yeah. Then what? These minor things in life that just be, minor annoyances. You know what I mean? It's just.
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
Okay. We're 43 minutes into the show. Well, let's get through this. This is very interesting stuff. Some of this, a lot of people know. Some people don't. So other people know, the various elements of it, but they haven't really put them together and thought about putting them all together and looking at them the way I'm about to present. Okay, so first of all, Ready Player One, the idea of a bunch of stacked mobile homes, trailer homes, tiny homes, whatever you want to call them. Well, that's like a weird, dystopian idea that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. Because we have, in the cities, we have all these skyscrapers and office buildings. Like you take New York, there's all this empty space and people are doing remote jobs now. So eventually those buildings will either become living spaces or they'll be demolished. It's like my street, okay? I live on a street, and I told people 1,000 times, it's very inexpensive here. It's a very diverse community, and it contradicts everything you see on TV. But we're not going to talk about politics or divisiveness or any of that kind of stuff. But the point of the matter is people here, we all get along, and it's basically an inexpensive neighborhood. I've got camera on there, traffic, blah, 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 But the point is they demolished about a dozen houses along this strip where I live. They were old. I don't know, absentee landlords. Who knows what it is? People using them as something in the tax code. Because I was going to buy a building one time, a really cool place one time, and the owner, like, he didn't want to sell it. It was vacant for years. And the realtor said to me, guys like this, they hold on to these buildings because they get, for tax purposes, they just write them off. And they have these buildings in various smaller towns or different places. And they just, they get a tax write-off, hope maybe they might accidentally burn down, or eventually they'll be condemned or something by the city. And I don't know. It's all a big game that these, it's a realtor game. Everything's a game, right? So that said, people are going to live where they're going to live. In other words, people will find a place to live. And in the United States right now, there are plenty of places to live. A lot of people just haven't been desperate enough or pushed out enough. In other words, there are people who still are true believers that they're going to save America, right? Or that something's going to change. There's, I don't know what it was, for the 400 or 500,000 or how many people have left New York and LA, right? But, there's been millions of people who have relocated in this country over the past year or so, since these, draconian measures have been implemented, and since things have started to get really since it's Psychoville. But for the millions of people who have relocated to find better places, and there's people who looked at, they track this kind of thing, because there are records. Because, it's basically the states keep records, because if you go to a state, they want to know you're there and tax you, right? And so what they found is, when you look at the number of people that have escaped from New York, or escaped from LA, or escaped from California, say, the statewide, and some other states, they don't necessarily jibe with the numbers in where people are saying, oh, they're all moving to Texas and Florida. Well, Texas and Florida have both shown tremendous influx of people in the hundreds of thousands, but it's not all the numbers. No, because they're moving to just all kinds of places like here. I'm in the mid-Atlantic states. They're moving to the outskirts of towns or former industrial towns that have infrastructure and the things they need. So in other words, everything's here. If I want to get a plane, they have an airport, I can't get a direct flight necessarily to certain places, but I could get a jet out of here, and, it'd be like a multi-leg flight. I'd have to fly to, some hub and then go to my final destination. But sometimes that happens when you live in New York or Philly or DC. So yeah, there's a train that you could get a train here. Like I said, for people interested in culture, there's a symphony and a ballet. I mean, they have leftovers. These cities, these old industrial towns. Some of these old industrial towns that aren't like major markets. In other words, they're not the top 100 markets, because that you don't want it. That's how far back you want to be. You want to be like outside of you don't want to be within the top one. When you say market, that's because I was in the media business, radio, and you call them markets. The top 100 cities, population centers, whatever, metro, right? And those are the places where the focus is on. And that's why I say a lot of people are exaggerating. They don't realize the sheer size of the U.S. and that the population, the 330 million population, and that the so-called stormtroopers that are, implementing these draconian policies, they've got like the top 100 cities, with ridiculous crime rates and all kinds of stuff going on. They've got enough stuff to keep them busy. So you want to be in the 100 to 200, size market. I mean, ideally, it'd be nice to be in a market that's just not even on the list, you know. And quite frankly, I wish I would have done something like that. But I just, at the time when I moved here, I'm happy. Like I say, my cost of living, mortgage, taxes, and insurance is about $200 a month. Try to duplicate that in an area where I have access to all of the amenities that one would have in a major city, right? And so once people become aware of that, they're going to be moving out of the cities, and they're going to be moving to places like this. And there are literally thousands of them, thousands. See, look, there's a bus right across the street from me. You know, see that? It's a bus stop. There's a bus stops there every 20 minutes or something like that. Yeah, you just walk across the street and take a bus, right? So if I wanted to, I could walk down the street. Yesterday I walked down the street to a grocery store, convenience store up the street, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So what I'm getting at is that it's not going to be like this image on this title card or thumbnail, whatever you want to call it, a bunch of some dystopian, weird, crazy society. All right? No, it's going to be people inside of these, you know, office buildings turned into residential areas, right? The cost of living apartment-wise is going to come down. See, this is another thing nobody's talking about. Yes, we have mass inflation, okay? But there's a ceiling that occurs that, again, the Save America people, Build Back Better people, the Great Reset, all that kind of stuff. Something that's not really discussed by anybody involved in those things or critics, thereof, is the idea that the ultimate goal is you will own nothing and not care, right? It's not you will own nothing and be happy. I mean, not care, be happy, kind of the same thing. But like I said in yesterday's show, happiness is really, is a much different thing, Happiness is joy, is fun, is a lot more than just not caring about something, all right? Or saying, No, happiness is, hey, I'm happy, happiness is, hey, this is fun, right? I mean, these guys over here, they're happy right now.
Really funny. Really funny.
See, that's happiness. So you will own nothing. They're not really talking about.
Really funny.
No, they're not talking about that kind of happiness. All right. It's more like you won't care. And you're going to be involved in this virtual world. And so taking into consideration, and I'm going to get back to the technology of it. So if you take, and it's a stupid, phrase or collection of words, state of the art. But if you take the state of the art of the technology used to create visual effects, all right, worlds, worlds within worlds, all right? Because that's what virtual reality is. It's worlds within worlds. Not even a world within, not like we're in this world and then you go into another world. It's worlds, plural, within worlds, and you can go deeper and deeper, right? And that's the metaverse because, don't we know that now modern physics, they talk about the multiverse, all right? And so there are metaverses in a sense. So the metaverse is, is worlds within worlds. And these worlds with each passing day, literally, okay, because the people working on this technology and utilizing this stuff, they are very well funded billions and billions and billions of dollars are being put into this. There are jobs all over the place. I've gotten some headhunter jobs. I had a creative director at Metaverse offer a couple of, several weeks ago, popped up on my, screen and things like that. They're aggressively seeking out any kind of person with, creative history, creative backgrounds who've done things to join their teams, and there are thousands and thousands of people working on this, if not 1 million people in the aggregate, right? Maybe, several million people. This is coming at you like a freight train, and the average person isn't even aware of it. They're thinking, oh, those gamers, you know what I mean? That's like kind of the response. Yeah, my kid spends all this time in his room with this thing on his head. I don't know what they're doing up there. It's like they have no idea. And they have no idea that the metaverse doesn't even require you to wear a headset. And what I'm saying is that more likely, if you're familiar with the Ray-Ban glasses that Zuckerberg has, purchased, and that's AR, augmented reality, and this allegedly Apple is working on a pair. That I think that technology is going to be leapfrogged, by the I call it photorealistic metaverse. And the reason I say photorealistic, even though that sounds like stills, right? It's a still photo. It would be video realistic. I mean, what a film realistic? How about life realistic or just realistic metaverse, right? Reality metaverse. What did I say in my thing? Is the metaverse real? How real? Run how, right? And so virtual reality becomes reality for people. And so, yeah, the idea is, who cares if you live in a trailer home, like in this picture over here, stacked, on some I-beams or whatever, because you're living within this world, right? But it goes beyond that, It's the idea of, okay, so we've created this perfect virtual world, all right? Which, like I was trying to say before, at this juncture, at this particular moment in time, it already exists. It's just that because of patents, competition, and things of that nature, technology is held back or is not being combined, right? Because you have competitors and legal teams and basically greed, and power, forces that just don't want to create, somehow come together and form this behemoth. They don't realize their power already. We still have this like charade that goes on, like where they parade people before the halls of Congress, pretending as if elected officials have any power or say whatsoever in anything. They don't. Okay? They don't. It's a corporatocracy. I say this all the time. Big tech has more power than any elected official. Okay? Just like the unelected bureaucrats have more power than any elected official. Big pharma has more power than any elected official, and I think it's pretty clear right now what's going on in the past 2 years, that big pharma currently is kind of ruling, right? This country is being ruled by big pharma. I mean, you can't question that, right? But, a couple of years ago, the country was being ruled by, the military contractors, right? We had endless wars, all these people dying, and they were making billions upon billions of dollars. Our trillions in tax dollars were going to, being ultimately fed into their coffers, right? And then there's big media, right? So who ultimately is like is sitting there collecting, making money on all of the above. So when you make a campaign contribution, big media gets an ad, right? But that ad doesn't sway anybody's opinion. So you're basically donating. You might as well just give the money direct to CNN, MSNBC, Fox, ABC, whomever. You see? Because that's where the money goes. And, these big media companies, there only are I think it's down to 5 corporations own mostly all the media, except for some of these, small independents. All right. And that includes, the way this is structured, some of them own billboard companies and, publications. So you're literally just giving a campaign. That's why I'm tired of getting the spam emails. No matter how I tried, you could try to unsubscribe. That just gets you 5 more emails because you're put on a live list. You could put it in your junk folder every day and it still comes in because the manner in which they mess with the sender, because it doesn't come from the same sender. They add numbers. They have all kinds of things they know. This is advanced coding. People know what they're doing now. And it's like Congress doesn't know what's going on. These people aren't literate in that. If they were, they wouldn't be working as a politician. They'd be working in Silicon Valley or for some tech company. That's just the way it is. That's not me saying this. That's not, the way it's going to be next year or 2023, 2024. Politics is dead. All right. So, so it doesn't matter. Forget about that. And so it's just a charade. It's something, it's like it's like a magician, sleight of hand, misdirection. That's what politics is right now in the United States. And I really wish I'm really going to repeat that. It's misdirection, sleight of hand, diversion. While the powers that are creating the metaverse get everything in place to the point where they're bulletproof. And when I say bulletproof, I don't mean it I mean that in the sense of unstoppable, okay? Not weapon-wise or anything like that. Okay? Meaning that they basically can say, Congress could say to, Mark Zuckerberg, send him a subpoena. All right. Which if you don't show, could, is legally, you could be, have serious legal problems, end up in jail technically or whatever. Where to the point where people like that can say, just tear it up, on camera and say, bug off, you insignificant fly. Right? Where the president of the United States can make an executive order, right? A decree, a mandate. And basically those, within the metaverse basically can say, pushing the metaverse and, the technology folks. Because Congress, some people in Congress know this and they're kind of afraid of this. They know it's coming. But it's like I say, it's a freight train. It's unstoppable. And people basically could say, shut up. We're not following that rule. Right? It's like the old classic. See, the American people have always been foolish in one way because, when people talk about the 1%, the ruling elite, the billionaire class, the ruling elite set, right? Well, they're such a small number of people out of 330 million people. And the American people, if they want to sit and complain and all that stuff, they're fools. They don't really have to. They just basically say, look, we're 99%, you're 1%. Shut up. Who cares? We don't care. You're outdated. We don't need you anymore. We'll follow the Constitution and we'll follow the basic rights, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're not going to do anything unlawful, right? Because we're moral people, right? Most people are moral, ethical people. Most of them, not all, but there's always been lunatics. There's always been crazies. There's always been criminals throughout history, right? But the point is the majority of people, 99% of the people are rational, reasonable people, aren't going to do any harm. And the way cities and small towns are all formed, they're I've been saying this for like 25, 30 years. So what people don't understand is, and they hate this, and that's why they keep trying to centralize power. They don't like the idea, maybe they read my earlier writings. They don't like the idea that, there was a time, but it's still in certain areas, and even in the area I am, where that we don't need the federal government for anything whatsoever, right? In other words, if you have a community bank and you have a store, all right? Like I know in an area where I used to live, I moved, but it's in between the area where I live currently and where I used to live, right? It's about 45 minutes away from me. And somewhere in between there's a road that I can get to the town where I used to live, where I used to rent a place for the place I rented, the cost of living, the rent there is my entire cost of living here. Okay. So that's how much I saved by buying this house. And having this, my own yard, growing food and stuff like that. But in between these two towns, the tale of two cities here, there's this place, this farm that grows ridiculous amounts of food. I mean, it's huge. It's in between these two places. And there's a lot of farms around here. There's rural areas here, there's farms. And they produce, and there's people that have, cows, pigs and stuff for all the people into that kind of thing. Like I say, I'm just personally not into that anymore. And for health reasons, I've just become more vegetarian. And I guess what I didn't finish before is the idea of I'm not a milk drinker. It's just not, that's it. But I mean, I have nothing against somebody who drinks milk, butter, or ice cream or cheese because, it's just coming out the teat of a cow or a goat or whatever the heck. You know what I mean? You're not harming an animal, all right? And in many cases, it just the way these dairy cows are, if you don't release all of that out of there, it actually causes problems for the animal, all right? But that show's not about that. But there are dairy farms, but there are these places around here that produce, and orchards and things like that, where you could go pick apples and get a bushel basket full of apples. I've got 2 apple trees in my backyard, which I planted with the goal of being self-sufficient here myself. But I already grow most of my summer food here. And as it turns out, with this health situation that I have where I'm supposed to eat like leafy greens and fresh vegetables and all that stuff, I'm already growing that stuff. So it's like, yeah, no problem, But there's this place and places. So what I'm saying is they don't like this. And when I say they, that's like the government, the central planner type of people, right? In this area, we don't need them. We don't even need the state capital, okay? Because at my local grocery stores, and there's farmers markets and places like that in this area, remember, the only thing you have to do is eat, right, to survive. I mean, you need shelter over your head, so yeah, I advise everyone to get a house, and I advise you to buy a house, okay? Because then it's yours. All right. And if you buy a cheap enough house in a cheap enough area, even if the taxes go up a little bit, they can't tax, in other words, taxes are scalable. And so, like I say, my mortgage, taxes, and insurance, and same with insurance. A house is only can be insured for a value of said house. So if you're living in some oversized place, paying ridiculous taxes, ridiculous insurance, and a high mortgage, you're a fool. Because that's not sustainable. That's going to be where the collapse occurs. That's going to be the problem. And so you've got this giant big country, and you've got thousands and thousands of potential places like this that can house millions, that, in collectively millions and millions of people can live in. And we have our own farms and our own food production and things of that nature. Right? And people in areas like this tend to be a little more mechanical. And all one has to look at, and I hate to use this as an example because I'm about as anti-communist as anyone can be. In other words, I despise, what communism has done, the hundreds of millions of people communism has killed. But, there is one example, unfortunately, and it's not pro-communism, it's just an example of something. When Cuba was basically cut off by the United States, they had no way of importing vehicles. So if you see photos, and I've seen people who've gone down to Cuba, like under the under the Obama administration, it was like there was a little window of opportunity where people were going down there. And as being a YouTuber, I saw a couple of YouTubers, like some couples that went down with their iPhones and stuff and videotaped going into these little, places. But all along the streets, the cars that you see were like these late 1950s, early 60s automobiles that all looked brand new. Because, after the, Kennedy era and stuff, that was the end of Cuba as far as our, interactions with them. So what they did was they basically had to keep fixing and building, repairing, reconstructing, or even refabricating the vehicles that they have. So you go down there and you get a 1957 Chevy, and it's like brand new. And, and like any mechanic, and any kind of person, and even to build a factory, it's a matter of like, people talk about, you take a technology, you deconstruct something, right, to find out how it was made, and then you and then you make it. And so that's what they did there, okay? And you can see visuals of that. And I'm not saying that's no great enlightenment to anyone. Anyone who's seen any pictures of that, that's all you see driving down, except I think they were able to get those little tiny mini Russian cars, whatever they're called. I forget the name of them. These tiny little Russian cars, which, by the way, now that particular Russian company has turned those into electric vehicles. But be that as it may, the point of the matter is some people would say, well, how are you going to live? They have this idea that we're dependent upon the federal government and we're dependent upon the state. And there's this totalitarian state and we must live under authoritarianism, right? The Stasi state, right? The stormtroopers are going to come and break your door down. The point is there's 330 million people here in this country. And this is a widespread country. Stay out of the top 100 markets. They're going to get their hands filled with that. They're not coming after you because you're growing carrots in your backyard. All right? They simply do not have enough people. You understand? And it's like in any disaster, when the fit hits the shan, I don't even care if a cop, an FBI agent, a CIA officer, if they happen to agree ideologically with the totalitarians running things. The point is, family comes first. So, even in a natural disaster or some ridiculous thing that could happen, say a grid down situation just for the sake of it, it's inevitable that we're due for, at the very least, a Carrington event, which means we could have a grid down situation at any moment, right? Like the one that took out the telegraphs. It would take out a power grid. People go crazy. They'd have no internet. They'd have no nothing. Wouldn't bother me. I've got power backups. Even back in my grow yard, you can see I got solar panels on top of my little mini greenhouse there. And I've got things so I could listen to music, grow food. I'm fine, right? And there's a lot of people like that. And I'm not even a prepper. I'm just some guy living in a neighborhood. You can see the trucks passing by. I just live in a street. It's just that I live in a street in on the outskirts of town. I'm not dependent on them. And if I lose the grid power, well, it sucks. I'm not going to be doing any more of these videos, and I'm not going to be watching videos. But I have DVDs, and I have music. I have digital music collection, and all that stuff. In fact, the vast majority of my day will still be fulfilling. It might be more fulfilling and certainly quieter. So that's the thing you need to understand. And people, the so-called, fear that people have is that, no, they're going to abandon their posts because they're going to be worried about their family, their children, their relatives, their loved ones, their girlfriends, wives, boyfriends, whatever. Do you understand? And the ones that remain, right, in these cities are going to be, basically like surrounding the super elite, right? Right? That's going to be their job. They're not going to have time to go after somebody growing a carrot, is what I'm trying to say. And certainly not people outside of major markets and stuff like that in the local areas, right? People know the cops here, right? They're local people. They go to school with, they went to school with them, right? Their children go to school with their children. The wives know each other from some event or something. They go to a church, or whatever, synagogue or something, Hey, look, people don't see reality. So how does that tie into virtual reality? All right, that's the question. Well, what I'm saying is that the people forget about hyperinflation. See, in the short term, this is why 2022 is going to be such a pivotal year as I started this show. This year, we're seeing, the Fed has signaled that they're going to raise interest rates 3 times this year and 3 times next year. Okay. We're dealing with hyperinflation right now. Okay. There are, probably they're saying right now there were 11 million people out of work. What was it? 4.5 million people quit their jobs. I don't know. There could be 15 million, but then, these statistics, the government statistics, they try to say the unemployment rate is 3.9% or something like that. But the point is they don't count people once you're off unemployment. People who stopped working or quit and just aren't looking, right? In other words, they're not on their statistical rolls. It's a horrible thing they do. It's like figures lie and liar figures. They did the same with this thing that was been going around that I'm tired of saying. 99.6% of the Americans did not die from that thing and will not die from it. The raw numbers seem high, but in reality, 99+% didn't die. All right. Those are pretty good odds of survival. Okay. And it's the same with everything else. You have to look at things in perspective and see things realistically. My advice to you is to get a house while interest rates are low. Interest rates are high. But here's how it's going to play out in a couple of years from now. Forget about elections because, like I say, these people are on the verge of thumbing their nose to the politicians. So you believing that Look, I don't know how to say this, and it almost angers me, and I want to keep my cortisol levels low, okay? But I could almost use the F word and get on a real rant, which I've done on other shows about this. Look, I'm not political. I don't support the Democrat Party. I don't support the Libertarian Party. I don't support the Republican Party. I don't support the Green Party. I don't support the Communist Party. I don't support the Socialist Party. I don't support any frickin' party there is. Okay? Because they're all frickin' hypocrites. Okay? It's hypocrisy for profit. That's what it is. But what I'm going to talk about right now is something just to get this in clear into people's head. Okay, the clown in office right now is a clown, and it's not because I'm against the Democrat Party. The guy is a fucking moron. He's ill. All right? But he's a moron. He's always been a moron, and he's corrupt. All right? The evidence is out there, but people don't want to talk about it for some reason. Okay? So he's not in charge of anything. The corporatocracy's in charge of thing. Right now, Big Pharma has got the lead, Okay. Now, then you got the other guy, Trump, who was there for 4 years, and he was going to be draining the swamp and doing all this stuff, right? Okay, guess what? He not only didn't drain the swamp, but the swamp doubled down and screwed him over. The guy got impeached twice, all kinds of stuff. His own attorney general was lying to his face. His generals were working against him behind his back. And now they're all trying to frame him, right, for the coup they were involved in. And you're saying, oh, let's get a red wave and let's, save America. Well, they're not going to just double down if you have a red wave. They're going to triple down. Do you understand? The politicians aren't in charge. The politicians aren't in charge. The politicians aren't in charge. Okay? Not even the military is in charge. See, the military made a very big mistake. We don't even have to worry about a military takeover of this country. You know why? Because the military went in bed with big tech. And the problem is, big tech knows everything the military's doing. And the military thinks they've hired all these coders and all these people and stuff. But what they don't know is for every coder and every hacker that they have working for them and for all the stuff that the DIA and all the data they're collecting and keeping in the salt mines out west and stuff like that, that big tech and people that they're not even aware of have more information or have the same information and can hack whatever they want to do. There is no government. There is no military. It's all a big charade. And these people are such narcissistic sociopaths and psychopaths that they don't even understand that they're insignificant and irrelevant. And within the coming years, they're going to be more and more insignificant and irrelevant. And there's a lot of people out there, people in the Save America, people or Build Back Better or Great Reset. And they're all thinking they're trying to do good and they've got noble goals and, all this kind of stuff. And they have no idea of the world that is already happened. The Great Reset occurred, okay? 2022 is a pivotal year in which everything is wrong, and what you don't know, you don't know. Things have changed, and you don't know it because it hasn't trickled into your conditioned, indoctrinated, propagandized brain yet. You're just simply not aware, okay? So then you have this metaverse. Okay, enough of that. That's a mouthful, right? That's a earful, a brainful. Okay? Now you have the metaverse. And you got these people doing concerts in there, right? Like I said, you don't have to wear headsets. The metaverse exists already, okay? And so you've got people, they're doing concerts. You can buy concert tickets. You can find people trying to sell concert tickets, it's like it's like the real world, but it's the metaverse. Okay, it's a virtual world. People are buying property and they're saying, "Oh, there's going to be coins within it, and you're going to do this and that and live there and blah blah blah." Okay, all the same stuff the World Economic Forum is saying. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And you'll own nothing and you won't care because you're going to be involved in this, living in this thing. So the price of housing, rental housing in the top 100 markets will go down because they're going to want to put as many people as they can in this metaverse. They want people to be living in the metaverse because then they control you. See, then they have central control over you. Right? Remember, you only have to eat. That's the only thing you have to do. All right? Everything else, but you need shelter. Okay? So they want, so these big office buildings, they'll either tear them down, right? Or they'll turn them, refurbish them into apartment places so people could live. So the rents in the big cities will go down. And there's some people thinking, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to stay in New York, man. If the rents are going to come down in a couple of years, I guess I could weather it out. No, you don't get it. Then you're going to be living in the Stasi state, right? And you think you will own nothing and not care. You'll be like that guy in one of the Matrix movies, one of the earlier Matrix movies, who was sitting there eating a steak and say, I know this steak isn't real, but it tastes great. And he's drinking the wine and going like, yeah, I want to go back and I want to be somebody, maybe a music producer or whatever the heck he said. And it's like, but you won't know that. You won't be that. Okay? And what happens when you have like a medical problem? You just die. Right? Are they going to be serving you? Like, what kind of foods are you going to be eating? Junk food? What's the life expectancy of someone in the metaverse? Think about that. Someone who, in other words, you open up a shop in the metaverse, which means you're spending your day. You go to work every day in the metaverse. Okay? You sleep at night, but you go to work in the metaverse. There are people who have already gotten married in the metaverse. Okay. And so when you're not running your shop, your business, or having your metaverse job, your virtual job in this virtual metaverse world, okay, you're doing something else. And maybe you're wearing something over your genitals so that you can have sex in the metaverse. Right? Of course you can. They already have the hand gloves where you can feel things, right? And obviously you get the full surround sound, 360 degree. That was the first thing they did, right? So yeah, you probably put on slip on a bodysuit, right? That'll mimic, sensation. And over time, the human body's interesting. It will become more and more sensitive to that sort of thing. So the senses will be heightened. There's probably some freaks out there listening to this going, well, that's cool, man. That'll be great. The thing about you're not thinking about is eating. All right, and health. What are you going to do for sustenance? How are you going to survive? How are you going to stay healthy? Right? Is Instacart going to deliver? Like what? You're going to be in the metaverse, man. So you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to eat some breakfast and pop a bunch of vitamin pills or something like that, and then jump into the metaverse and get to work, and then come back. What about fluids? Is there going to be an IV in your suit that's going to keep you hydrated? If you're not hydrated, that's the cause of like all sorts of problems. In fact, it's one of the primary contributors to some of the major illnesses, lack of hydration. Right? See, people haven't thought these things through. Right? So the life expectancy over the past several years has dropped by 1.8 years, almost 2 years. That's tragic. It has nothing to do with this disease. These figures were right at the beginning. I'm quoting figures that were like right around the time when this thing, before this thing hit, right when it hit, kind of thing. This isn't the 2022, end of 2021 figures. This is going into 2020. Okay. The life expectancy dropped by almost 2 years in the United States. I propose to you that the metaverse, the life expectancy will be cut in half. The average life expectancy will probably be, lucky if it's like 35, 36 years, something like that. Think about that. Think about that. They're already doing this, like, remote learning, remote working. That's introduction. That's introduction to the metaverse 101. Okay. Everything is wrong. This whole thing, man. This whole thing is a buildup. It's sick. And, having sex in the metaverse isn't going to reproduce a child. Excuse me. Guys, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Really funny. Really funny.
Hey, I'm only human.
What do you mean
I'm only human.
Okay.
You're right. So.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I'm throwing a lot of things out at you, and trying to pull all these pieces together so it makes some kind of sense, so you can see the big picture. Like, what do you do? All right, with this information. All right, what did I do? I did this. Okay. So I found a place to live where I could grow, be happy, sit on that lounge chair back by that garage door, soak up vitamin D3, grow my food. You can't see it, but there's 2 speakers underneath that, drain thing, gutter from the roof. There's 2 stereo speakers there. And so that I could sit there on that chair and listen to my music inside the garage, powered by the sun or powered by stored energy, right? By one of these like jackery things I have, which I have on my site, great solar stuff. And like I say, I'm not monetized. People hear me talk about all these things and think, oh, he's trying to make a buck. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just like, it's like when I wrote this book, like Codex and Denwatt and stuff, and their flow of consciousness things. No, I'm just trying to like share, how my mind works and what I'm doing and stuff like that. And, all these shirts, Denwatt and stuff are just my way of communicating. I'm wearing the exact same hoodie as she is. All right. And it's a comfortable shirt, man. Comfortable hoodie. They're real comfortable. And they're cheap. And some of my t-shirts sell for like $18, and half the time they either have free shipping or 10% off or stuff like that. So what I'm getting at, apart from all that I'm trying to help you live, survive, and deal with all that stuff. But I'm not a prepper. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I don't, it's just the idea of, be free. Freedom. Freedom is fun, as it says on the bottom of the screen, over there. Underneath ROCKFLUX. Underneath the guys, the guys from Mystery Science Theater. Because that's what this is turning into. That's what this world is turning into. It's like a B movie. It's like a real bad B movie, right? Yet, like yesterday's title card, it's like a horror movie, right? Like a B horror movie, really. I should have put B horror movie on that. And so, you don't have to. The future you choose is still up to you. So get out of one of those top 100 markets or even top 50 markets. Move to the outskirts of town in a market that's like either, from 50 to 100 or 100 to 200, right? In other words, a metropolitan area that's just like not one of the big, one of the main cities that, the average person can name, right? Get out of New York, Philly, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, Miami, right? Who cares what the weather's like down there, okay? It's going to be crazy. Do you know what would happen? What people would do down there if the power grid went out? All right? Do you think everyone would be like, oh, okay, well, who cares? Let's just go to the beach and make margaritas and, mojitos and all that stuff. No. Okay? You go down to like the South Beach and stuff like that, people, their cell phones aren't going to work. Man, they can't text people. What are they going to do? Right? No more selfies. People are going to go nuts. You want to be in an area. That's why I don't have cell phone service. I have an emergency cell phone, right? It's even hard to get a signal with. But all it is I just have it for emergency purpose. Otherwise, I use a Wi-Fi service. I pay $39. Magic Jack. I'll tell you what it is. I don't get paid by them. $39 plus tax a year for like my phone service in my house. $39. My mortgage, tax, and insurance is $200. Okay? More than half the year, I grow food in my backyard and eat it. Lettuce that I have so much lettuce I have to give it away. Tomatoes, peppers, carrots, potatoes, squash, beans, peas, every herb you can imagine. I've grown corn back there, at times. I don't always do that though. Other foods I can't even think of. Radishes, beets. You know what I mean? You name it. You put the seed in the ground, and I've been doing it for so long, I collect the seeds, so I have my own seeds. I'm not even dependent on that. If I've got legacy seeds. My apple trees were from apples that I ate, not from a seed I bought that has some patent or copyright or something weird like that, because they've done that, They patent seeds now and stuff. It's crazy. It's really sick. I literally ate a couple apples, let the seeds rest. There's something you put them in water. I forget whether it's the ones that float to the top or the ones that sink, which one's the ones that are going to grow. Well, anyway, I did that process. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. Planted it in, little seed starter thing under a grow light in my back porch. And sure enough, it grew. I think I planted like 6 of them. And one grew the first year. And it was sure enough apple leaves. And it just kept growing and growing. And when it got big enough, and the weather was right, I transplanted it, put it outside. Now it's like 18 feet tall. And the following year, I did it again, and I got another successful one, and I planted that. And I did have another one, but that one's not doing too well for some reason. But I think it must be rocky soil where I planted that or something. I'm not worried about it, because as long as you have 2, so you get some cross-pollination or whatever, there's some stupid thing about that. But what I'm trying to say is I have a bird feeder out there, and so the birds came. So I've got grapevines, right, that I didn't plant, but now I've got grapevines. And I've got blackberry bushes, because the birds bring that stuff, and the seeds, it's that whole thing. And so it's like, I've got fruits and vegetables. Eventually in another year or 2, I basically will have enough food to live year round. I don't care what goes on. I've got my music. I like music. I play music. I write music. I've got a library of books upstairs that, I haven't read them. I'm not that young, so the point is I probably have enough books to read till the day I die. I have enough music to listen to every day. I have, I can grow my food. I've grown food inside. I'm growing kale right now on my back porch. I've eaten radishes out of my back porch closet. I've got oregano and parsley and cilantro growing there right now. I have a cat, and I have catnip that's like a big catnip. Almost, it's growing like a bush. Inside, indoors. So people might say, yeah, but what if? It's like, yeah, I'll grow indoors. Human ingenuity, the human mind, creativity. We all have it. It's just in some people it's stunted because you've allowed them to indoctrinate you and condition you, and you've listened to the propaganda. You just need to open your mind. We all have the capability. If one human can do it, another human can do it, unless you have a disability. And in that case, and people have overcome disabilities tremendously and have found other ways to get around that. But there are some people that need help. And if you know someone who is disabled in a certain way, then that's the type of person that you should help out. And I certainly have plenty, right, growing. And if there was someone in need, I would gladly share my, lettuce yields and tomato yields and pepper yields and kale yields and stuff like that with them. Gladly. Because every year I do share as much as I can with the people who are nearby, but inevitably I grow so much lettuce that it gets out of control, or things like chard, that ends up in my compost pile. So that's what I mean. That's how easy it literally is. And the side, if I had a lettuce seed, you would barely be able to see it in between my fingers. And that thing can produce enough lettuce for me to eat salads every day, almost. A couple lettuce plants. Isn't that crazy? That's the kind of the lie that they put before you. And even if you lived in an apartment, if you had a south-facing window, a window that gets sun, put it that way, for, a decent amount of sun, you can grow things like, basic herbs, greens, and things like that right in your window. You might not have ever thought of this, but I mean, in other words, a windowsill's only maybe about so wide. Well, what you do is you take a board, you can go to a box store or anywhere, or even some place where they sell, if you have an old shelf, or a place where they sell shelving boards, right? Which would be the ideal if you lived in an apartment. And you take a shelving board, that's wide, that's about 10 feet wide, like a shelf, 10 or 12. 12 would be ideal. And you take that and you just screw that into the windowsill. You say, oh, the apartment building, blah, blah, blah. Screw them. If you ever moved out, you just cover it with spackle. All right? They won't even notice it. And, in the college days, people used to put toothpaste in the holes where they put tacked posters on the wall. Nobody ever noticed it. But you just put some spackle in there. You can buy spackle for like a tiny little thing at the dollar store. You can get a little thing of spackle to fill those holes for $1. The Dollar Tree, right? Which rumored to be going up to $1.25. So what? So it's $1.25. And you maybe put a little support piece underneath it if you're going to put a lot of pots on there. Growing pot planters. And you can grow yourself some kale, some lettuce. I grew tomatoes indoors. All right. Remember, it's heated inside your house. And if you have sun, you'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised what you can do if you wanted to. I saw a guy who was in, I think it was Michigan, who actually grew speaking of coffee, he actually grew a coffee plant in his house, in like a planter. The kind of planter that you would plant like a big indoor, type of plant, right? House plant type of thing, but one of those things that gets tall. Well, he had grown a coffee plant and it was filled with coffee beans after, I don't know, it took a couple of years. It's like apples. You don't get them the first year. Sometimes it takes 4 years or more. Okay, so if you're planning to do this, do it now. But this dude ended up with all these coffee beans. He grew in his house. That's how crazy it is. So the point is, where there's a will, there's a way to do whatever you want to do. Okay. You just got to, you just got to put your mind on it, or you have to adapt to a situation, whatever comes down the pike. That's not what this show's about. What I'm trying to tell you is this metaverse thing is not realistic, and they haven't thought it through. And what they missed is the idea of hydration and food. And if the goal is that you want to live in the metaverse and you think this is the greatest thing, right? Yeah, go for it. But you'll remember your life expectancy is only going to be like 35, 36 years old. All right. So to speak. You'd be lucky to make it to 40. And they're all for that. And then eventually that generation will die out because you won't be having children, right? It's like these people who got married in metaverse. What are they doing? And what are they having sex in the metaverse? Well, that's mutual masturbation. There's no consummation going on there. Now, these are things that people don't talk about when they say that. It's like AI. Read my book Codex. Get the print versions, by the way. Print versions, they're available in Apple Books and Kindle and stuff. But, they get screwed up. Like I say, I designed my last book on Apple software that actually had a pull-down thing under the file menu is send to Apple Books. So it's designed on an Apple computer, using Apple software, right? And I'm saying send Apple Books. I look at it on Apple Books, and stuff's out of whack. So it's like I'm going like, what the? And what? Who's the team? What team? In a spaceship-looking building out there, these people making 6-7 figures, that they screwed up my digital book. So it's like, buy it on Amazon. It's only $9.95. This book here. Then what? There. Everything is backwards and upside down on this open source program I'm using. But it's great that I can do all this stuff with it, so it's worthwhile. So you will own nothing and not care is what is really what they want. You're not going to be happy. Not happiness. Right? Happiness. Think of what happiness really is. You see? No. Happiness comes from life, liberty, and a pursuit of happiness. And then when you find happiness, like I say, that pursuit of thing you got to be careful of. It's like you want to be free to pursue happiness, but it has to be attainable. And that's like I see with the people who talk about Save America. See, my question to them is, because they'd be all in agreement. Yeah, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's what it's all about, man. That's why we want to save America. And I'm going, but can you attain happiness? Because the last time you were in charge and you controlled, Congress and the Senate and the presidency, did you attain happiness? No. Because the corporatocracy kept knocking you down and all the bureaucracies worked against you. And they're just going to double down on you now. Wake up to reality. And the metaverse isn't going to work, just like AI isn't the answer. Because of, what we really need is for the people who have the patent on this and the patent on that to come together and negotiate, some sort of agreements and percentages. I'm not saying that, they should give away their rights, but I'm saying they need to come up and basically be willing to compromise and negotiate and say Siri and, Echo Dot and Cortana, all these various voice assistants, they all need to be utilizing the latest GPT technology, which could well be heading towards GPT-4, all right? And at that point, but they're not doing that. Like, they're all working, you see, and that's the problem. That's the problem we have. And it's the same with with other technologies right now. They're all, it's the patent wars. And that's what broke the internet, right? And it's like I showed you before, Google simply doesn't work, right? You get the results and two conflicting results on the same page. I don't know if I still have that up here or not. Yeah, I do. Is turmeric good for gallstones? Well, the result you get at the thing, it says turmeric can stimulate bile formation, ease gallbladder emptying. Incorporating turmeric diet can also reduce inflammation and gallbladder pain. But this other second one below it was invisible. You had to hit that arrow on the right. I went through this the other day, but in case someone who didn't see that show. This one says, is turmeric bad for gallstones? It says turmeric can make gallbladder problems worse. Do not use turmeric if you have gallstones or... So in effect, Google is broken. Because when you go to Google, search for an answer, unless it's a simple answer, where's Joe's truck repair in Poughkeepsie? All right? Yeah, you'll find that answer. Okay, but, you used to be able to do that with, pretty easy with the phone book, a yellow page. They still drop off a phone book, by the way. You'd be able to look that up anyway if you wanted to. And maybe I have a website. So, but the point is, Google is broken. The internet is broken because there's so many results and their algorithms aren't working, and it's pay to play besides that. It's the same with YouTube. So what makes you think that if they can't run a search engine, okay, with all the again, like I say, I hate the hyphenated word, state of the art. But with the state of the art technology, Alphabet, who owns Google, all right, if they have a broken search engine, all right, because of their pay to play and because of all the pressures and their internal narratives, ideologies, and all kinds of games that are being played within these companies that have become behemoths, giant bureaucracies, okay? If they can't properly run Google to give you a realistic search engine in the age of information, right? How do you expect them to run the metaverse? Right? It's like YouTube. All these games they play, and copyright infringements and this, that, the other. Don't say this, don't say that, blah, blah, blah. Like many people have said, okay, what if you were involved in the metaverse, for example? I'm going to get to a close here. All right, say I decide I'm going to live in the metaverse. Okay, I don't care if I only live to be 36 years old because I'm in the metaverse, spending so much time in the metaverse. I'm not properly getting enough, hydration. I'm eating crappy foods, right? Whatever's delivered to my door. Whatever. I'm taking vitamin supplements, which, supplements are useless because it's all about absorption in your body. It's another thing they neglect to tell you. Yeah, it's great. There's great supplements out there, but the problem is, are they being absorbed in your body? And that's a whole nother thing. Go down that rabbit hole sometime and see it. You could be taking all kinds of wondrous things that have all kinds of promises to do all kinds of great things for your body. But the fact is, it's like they say, vitamins and supplements are a way for rich people to piss away their money. And literally, that's what I mean. You're pissing the vitamin out. Okay? So you want to do that, So you're in the metaverse and you say, okay, fine. That's, that's it. All right. I want to do it. I don't care if I only live to be 35 because because I die of malnutrition or lack of hydration and all this shit. Okay. And you open up this business, or you get this job in the metaverse, and you have this girl, dream girl in the metaverse, because you've created, because the photorealist, what I call photorealism, I mean video realism, whatever, real realism, right? Drop dead gorgeous girl, and you're a drop dead, whatever, handsome guy. And so you Barbie and Ken couple, and you have this virtual sex all the time, and in your suit it feels great, right? Of course you got to wash that thing. But anyway, so you do that, all right, and you have this job, and you make this money, and you become this like mega millionaire, and you live and you buy a house on the same block as Snoop Dogg, okay? And then somehow you're in bed with your drop dead gorgeous wife, girlfriend, or at some party, and you say the wrong thing. Well, you go, oh, I would never say the wrong thing. Yeah, but you're, because they'll probably, like I said, you would probably really have to have an IV if you really were to ultimately immerse yourself in the metaverse. Because you would have to get fluids if you would be in there any given time. And so why wouldn't they, if you had an IV, there could be an IV in there that if you would take a drink, and I'm sure they could come up with a real interesting thing. I could imagine it already. Maybe I should create the company that creates this IV. In other words, the IV would be able to put some kind of dopamine or something that would mimic taking a shot of Jaeger. Right? Because you're going to want to party. You're 20 some years old, right? Or whatever. You're in there. And so you're with this babe, right? And you want to hang out. You're going to go to the bar. And you're going to do shots or something. But you're going to want to feel the effects of it. So like when you take that shot in the metaverse, that IV that's hydrating you to keep you alive, right? Just a little bit of this some kind of dopamine type of thing is released into your system, right? Or like a little liquid THC or something if you're smoking a joint. Do you understand? See, you have to put all this in perspective and think about it. You can't have a metaverse and mimic real life for a generation. Do you ever see that? Do you see that show Euphoria they have on, like, I think it's HBO or something like that? I mean, I just watched like the pilot and a little bit of the second show, but I'm not that interested in it because it's like high schoolish. It's like I'm not really I can't relate to those shows in a way. They get boring for me after a while because it's just not I'm out of that. That's not my generation. But that's who the metaverse is for. Okay? So they're going to want to live their life and do that kind of thing. And so, are they taking that into consideration? So what happens if you go to the bar or you're hanging out with your bros and, a little bit of the, THC or whatever's like, injected through your thing in your suit, and you just happen to say something that's like wrong speak. You get banned from the metaverse. And now you're back and you find out and you're not allowed back in. Like you got banned from YouTube or Twitter or whatever. Okay, or Facebook, which is Metaverse. Okay, so suddenly, blammo. Now you're in some New York apartment building, Spartan, room, that's basically got this weird chair, where your suit and you're all set up because your metaverse was your world. and you're not allowed back in. And you look out the window and it's basically dystopia, or it's, something like Ready Player One. Now, what are you going to do? You lost your business, you lost your income, you don't have any money because it was virtual money within the metaverse. You don't even know there is nothing outside. Right? Where do you go? What do you do? You may not even have any friends outside of the metaverse. You don't know where they live. You met them in there. Let me just leave you with that. You will own nothing and not care. I don't know about that. I think this is a slippery slope, and it's pretty darn scary, and it should be scary to you.
Good morning.
Yeah, it ain't gonna be the way it's being. 2022 is a pivotal year, and you ought to listen to some of the things I've been saying on the past couple shows. Anyway, here's all my stuff. Go to TonyCaravanLive.com or ROCKFLUX.com. There's my book, Codex, and then what? Get the print versions. Great solar stuff. You can get one of those power packs. If the power goes out, you are still alive. And you could see that honey there wearing one of my other hoodies. All my sayings are available in hoodies, tees, and like in the other corner, the classic, iconic Tony Caravan with everything you know is wrong. You could even get a bag to go shopping with or carry your wares in. Check it out. I'll be back probably tomorrow to continue this discussion. This is real interesting stuff. Take care. Cheers.